He walked 50 miles with the dying queen and she spared his world. The acrid smell of superheated silicate particles hung in the air as Eli Thorne pressed his fingers against another survivor's carotid artery. Pulse present, weak but persistent. The young woman would survive, though the plasma burns etched across her collarbone would leave a constellation of scars to chronicle this day. Eli applied a regenerative membrane with practiced efficiency, his once bulging medical pack now depressingly light after treating 17 colonists pulled from the wreckage. "Medic, we need you yesterday." The shout sliced through the ambient cacophony of small fires and collapsing structures. Vasquez, her tactical armor sporting new battle scars, waved frantically from beside what had once been the colony's most popular cafe. Eli snatched up his dwindling supplies and sprinted over, boots crunching through a disturbing mosaic of pulverized concrete and twisted alloy fragments. "Damn near Vari weapons," Vasquez muttered. "Cut through our buildings like they were made of tissue paper." "3 trapped inside," she reported, gesturing toward a precarious tangle of support beams and fractured composite panels. "One's unresponsive, according to thermal scan." Eli knelt beside the first victim, while Vasquez and 2 Defense Corps soldiers worked to clear debris. The colony's distress beacon had been broadcasting for almost 7 hours, but evacuation vessels wouldn't arrive for another day at minimum. Until then, he represented these people's only chance at survival, a responsibility that sat like a neutronium weight on his shoulders. As he crawled deeper to reach the 3rd victim, his helmet lamp illuminated something that turned his blood to ice water. Azure skin with a pearlescent sheen, hair like liquid obsidian, matted with violet blood, the unmistakable cranial ridges that had become the face of humanity's newest existential nightmare. "Vasquez," he called, maintaining remarkable composure. "I need you to pull the others back." His fingers found the alien's neck, searching for the triphasic pulse pattern he'd only seen in xenobiology manuals. There, in a regular rhythm but definitely present. Her breathing came in shallow, rattling gasps that suggested significant internal trauma. "It's one of theirs," he announced as Vasquez appeared at the edge of the debris field, her rifle already raised. "Want me to finish it?" she asked with the casual coldness of someone who'd watched half her unit vaporize that morning. Eli studied the unconscious figure before him. Even through the blood and debris, she possessed an unearthly elegance, sharp, crystalline features framed by midnight hair. Her armor differed markedly from other Nirvari he'd encountered, more ornate, with inlaid glyphs that pulsed with bioluminescence. Not just any alien soldier. This was someone important. "She's wounded," he said mostly to himself. "She's the enemy," Vasquez countered flatly. "Look around you, Thorne." Eli did look, at the bodies they had already recovered, at buildings still belching smoke into the copper-colored sky, at the community he'd chosen as his sanctuary after too many years of warfare. This alien had almost certainly orchestrated the annihilation surrounding them. Yet his hands moved with autonomous precision, checking pupil response, probing for fractures. The wounds were severe but survivable with immediate intervention. A displaced rib fragment threatening her primary respiratory organ, internal hemorrhaging from blunt force trauma. "Doc, you can't seriously be thinking—" "Pull the others back," he repeated with quiet authority. "Give me space to work. This is insane. That thing killed Riker, killed Chen, killed half the damn colony. And she's dying now." Eli met her incredulous stare. "That's not going to bring them back. But letting her die might stop her from killing more of us." The moral calculus weighed heavily in Eli's consciousness. Every rational impulse urged him to withdraw, to let nature conclude what the battle had begun. Without intervention, this alien would expire within the hour, taking whatever strategic knowledge she possessed to her grave. Instead, he unfolded his trauma kit. The alien's eyes snapped open as he inserted a breathing stabilizer into her chest cavity. They were phosphorescent silver, like liquid starlight, with vertical pupils that contracted sharply at the sudden illumination. Those eyes locked onto his face with preternatural intensity, causing his hands to momentarily falter. She attempted to speak, producing only a wet, gurgling sound around the breathing apparatus. "Save your breath," he said, the words automatic. "You're severely injured. Trying to talk will only make it worse, and frankly, I've had enough alien drama for one day. A flicker of what might have been confusion, or possibly affront, crossed her features before she settled back, those luminous eyes never leaving his face. Vasquez, I need assistance extracting her. This structure's becoming increasingly nostalgic for its days as a pancake. Doc, this is beyond insanity. If we're doing this, we do it now. 20 minutes later, they had freed her from the debris and transferred her to an improvised stretcher. Eli worked with mechanical efficiency, his medical training overriding the persistent voice in his head, questioning his sanity. Intravenous line established with synthesized plasma, vital functions monitored, wounds cleaned and sealed with regenerative membrane. The alien remained conscious, those silver eyes tracking his every movement with the focus of a predator studying new prey. Evacuation point is 80 kilometers north, Vasquez reported, checking her tactical display. We've got wounded who can't wait for pickup here. Eli nodded, calculating rapidly. The portable medical unit would maintain her stability temporarily, but she required comprehensive surgical intervention, available only at the evacuation zone with its field hospital. Take the others, he said. Use the remaining transports. I'll follow on foot. Vasquez stared at him as though he had grown a second head. You're not seriously planning to carry her 80 kilometers? Eli glanced down at the alien, an officer of significant rank, perhaps even their leader, judging by the elaborate armor and the implicit authority she projected even while grievously injured. Yes, he said simply. I am. Your funeral, Doc. When she wakes up fully and slits your throat, I won't be writing the eulogy. Your bedside manner needs work, Vasquez. The evacuation vehicles departed an hour later, laden with wounded colonists and the handful of Defense Corps personnel who'd survived the initial bombardment. Eli watched them vanish into the smoke-hazed horizon, then turned back to his patient. The alien was fully conscious now, studying him with those unsettling silver eyes. Can you understand me? He asked. She inclined her head in the barest of nods. Good. We're going to take a little journey. Try not to die on me. My medical performance reviews are bad enough already. Something that might have been amusement flickered across her features before she closed her eyes, and Eli began the long trek that would reshape the destiny of two species. The improvised stretcher scraped against the rocky terrain as Eli adjusted his grip on the makeshift handles. He'd created a conveyance that could support the alien's weight without completely destroying his spinal integrity over 80 kilometers, though his lower back was already filing formal protests. Tau Ceti's merciless light beat down, transforming the barren landscape into a crucible that extracted sweat from every pore. The alien's eyes opened as he paused to check her intravenous line. The portable medical unit emitted a steady series of tones, monitoring her vital functions and administering analgesics at calculated intervals. Weem! The word emerged as barely more than a whisper, her translator implant converting the near-Vari phonemes into English, though it couldn't entirely eliminate the crystalline musical quality of her native language. Why what? Why save me? Those silver eyes searched his face with unnerving intensity. I commanded the forces that obliterated your settlement. Your people are dead because I ordered it so. Eli wiped perspiration from his forehead and resumed walking, the stretcher's weight digging into his shoulders. Because you are injured. That is not an answer. It's the only answer that matters. Your species demonstrates puzzling behavioral patterns. Says the blue woman who flew across space to blow up our farms, not winning any logical consistency awards yourself. She fell silent for several minutes, and he thought she might have lapsed back into unconsciousness. Then, your species is weak. This proves it. Maybe. The response clearly caught her off guard. He could feel her gaze upon him as he navigated around a cluster of basaltic formations. You do not deny it. Depends how you define weakness, he replied, pausing to adjust the stretcher's position. If caring about someone who can't defend themselves is weak, then yes, I'm weak. Though I should point out I'm still strong enough to carry you and your fancy armor across this hellscape. You do not care about me. You do not know me. Don't have to know you to care whether you die. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, though it emerged more like a crystalline chime. My people would have left you to perish. would have considered it merciful. Good thing I'm not your people. We have much better fashion sense. The conversation subsided, but he could feel her watching him as he trudged onward. Every time he halted to rest or check her condition, those luminescent eyes tracked his movements with predatory attentiveness. As afternoon surrendered to evening, her questions began in earnest. "What is your designation?" she asked during one rest interval. "Combat medic, lieutenant technically, but rank doesn't mean much when you're the only survivor with medical training, or when you're hauling an alien queen through a desert, not covered in the military handbook." "Your military authorized this mission?" "This was supposed to be my retirement." He gestured at the devastated landscape surrounding them. Nice, quiet colonial settlement, agricultural community. My biggest worry was supposed to be whether my tomatoes would win the colony fair. "Yet you carry weapons." Her eyes flicked to the sidearm holstered at his hip. "Old habits. Turns out they're useful when your peaceful farming community gets invaded by hostile forces. Who could have predicted?" "You have experienced combat before." It wasn't a question. She spoke with the certainty of someone who recognized a fellow warrior. Eli nodded wordlessly, unwilling to revisit the campaigns that had driven him to seek sanctuary on this remote world. "How many of my people have you killed?" she asked. "Does it matter?" "Yes." Eli halted and regarded her directly. The alien's azure skin had paled beneath its pearlescent undertones, but those eyes still burned with formidable intelligence. He realized she wasn't asking from a place of anger, but genuine curiosity. "3," he admitted finally. "During the initial assault, I was covering the evacuation of the civilian shelters." "Efficiently accomplished. My warriors are not easily dispatched. Neither are human civilians, apparently. They fought back with remarkable determination." "Yet you were defeated." "Yeah, we lost." The words tasted of ash and failure. "Your people are proficient at killing. I will acknowledge this." "We're proficient at surviving," she corrected, surprising him. "There is a significant distinction." "Not much of one from where I'm standing, or walking. Endlessly walking." She grew quiet again, but this time the silence carried a different quality, contemplative rather than hostile. Eli resumed walking, the stretcher's weight settling into a familiar rhythm across his shoulders. The evacuation point remained 70 kilometers distant, and Tau Ceti was beginning its descent toward the western horizon. "What will transpire when we reach your people?" she asked eventually. "I don't know. That's beyond my authority level." "They will interrogate me, perhaps torture me." Eli's stride faltered. "No, we don't do that. All species engage in such practices." "Not us, not anymore." "Your primitive optimism is almost endearing, and your cynicism is giving me flashbacks to my ex-wife." Another sound that might have been laughter. "Your weakness again." "Maybe," Eli acknowledged, "but it's our weakness." The cave offered protection from the wind that had intensified as evening approached, carrying with it the scent of impending electrical storms. Eli set the stretcher down carefully and performed his routine assessment of the alien queen's condition. Her core temperature had elevated slightly, and the wound along her left flank showed indications of inflammation, despite the antimicrobial agents. "We'll shelter here tonight," he said, adjusting the portable medical unit's parameters. "Weather's deteriorating faster than my knees on this trek." The queen examined the cave entrance with tactical precision. "Defensible position. You choose strategically." "Just fortunate, though I suspect my Cave Finder 3000 app might be working after all." "Your device can—" She paused, registering his expression. "Ah, human humor. Curious timing." "Laughter's the best medicine. Well, second best after actual medicine, which I'm running low on, so humor it is." He extracted emergency rations from his pack and activated the thermal element. "Hungry?" "I do not consume your sustenance." "Your choice, but your body needs energy to heal." He held up a nutrient bar. "It's basic, but it'll keep you alive. Though I should warn you, it tastes like it was formulated by someone who heard about food secondhand." She accepted reluctantly, her slender fingers brushing against his as she took the offering. Her skin radiated feverish warmth, and Eli made a mental note to increase the antimicrobial dosage. Outside, lightning illuminated the stark landscape in brief, brilliant flashes. The storm system advanced rapidly, and within minutes, rain began drumming against the cave's entrance. Eli constructed a small fire using debris from the ruined settlement, the flames casting animated shadows across the stone walls. "You are not what I anticipated," the queen said, breaking the comfortable silence that had developed between them. "What did you expect? More screaming? Less medical care? Savagery. Brutality." She gestured weakly toward the medical equipment surrounding her. "The intelligence reports characterized your species as primitive, technologically unsophisticated. Reports can be flawed, especially when they're written by people who've never actually met the species they're describing." "Can they?" Those silver eyes reflected the firelight. "We analyzed your military engagements, your history of warfare. Your people excel at discovering innovative methods of destroying one another." Eli prodded the fire with a branch, sending embers spiraling upward. "We also excel at finding new ways to heal each other. That's what I do." "Even your enemies?" "Especially our enemies. That's when it matters most. Even when those enemies have destroyed your home, killed your companions, that's when it's hardest. Also when it's most important." The queen studied him for a protracted moment, her gaze fixed upon his face. "You are peculiar, human." "Eli, my name is Eli, and you're not exactly standard issue yourself. I know your designation. I have reviewed your military service record." The admission sent an involuntary chill through him. "You know who I am?" "Lieutenant Elijah Thorne, former Special Operations Medical Detachment. 4 deployments during the Proxima Centauri conflict. Decorated for valor under extreme duress. Honorably discharged and relocated to Harmony Haven Settlement 18 months ago." She paused. "You were specifically identified for elimination during our assault." "Well, that's flattering, I guess. Though I usually prefer dinner invitations to death warrants. Because you represented a significant threat. Your record indicated exceptional capability at keeping enemy combatants alive long enough to provide intelligence." Her voice carried a note of grudging respect. "My tactical advisors recommended orbital bombardment of your position, but I countermanded them. You chose ground assault instead. I wish to witness your renowned human resilience firsthand." She studied his features in the flickering light. "I was not disappointed." Eli felt heat rise in his face that had nothing to do with the fire. The way she regarded him with that predatory intensity accelerated his pulse in ways he preferred not to examine too closely. She was the enemy, he reminded himself. Beautiful, dangerous, and responsible for the deaths of everyone he'd come to care about on Harmony Haven. "Your people," he said, desperate to change the subject, "are they all warriors?" "We are what circumstances demand of us." The queen shifted on the stretcher, wincing as the movement aggravated her injuries. "Our homeworld taught us that strength equals survival. Weakness equals extinction." Sounds like a harsh existence. It is the only reality we comprehend. No wonder you all seem so cheerful. Thunder reverberated overhead and the rainfall intensified, water beginning to trickle from somewhere deeper within the cave, creating a hypnotic rhythm that echoed against the stone. Eli checked the meteorological scanner on his communicator and frowned at the readings. "Storms forecast to continue through most of the night," he said. "We're staying put." Acceptable, the queen's admission surprised them both. "My body requires rest to facilitate recovery." But her eyes communicated something different. They suggested she was beginning to appreciate his company despite everything that separated them. The realization struck Eli like a physical impact, because he recognized the same unlikely sentiment developing within himself. "Tell me about your world," he said, settling back against the cave wall. "What was it like?" "Dying," she said simply. "But once it was magnificent." "Not big on happy endings, are you?" The sound of engines woke Eli from uneasy slumber. He rolled to his feet, weapon drawn, as 3 Near-Vari aircraft swept overhead, their navigation lights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. The beams swept across the cave entrance without pausing, but he knew they would return. "They search for me," the queen said, fully alert despite her injuries. "My fleet. They will not abandon their sovereign to human captivity." Eli began disassembling the medical equipment with practiced efficiency. Can you contact them? Tell them to withdraw? They would not comply. Marshal Zalathor believes I am compromised. She struggled to sit upright on the stretcher. He will assume you are extracting intelligence from me. Are you compromised? The question hung suspended between them as Eli secured the portable medical unit. The Queen's silver eyes searched his face, and he detected uncertainty there for the first time since he'd discovered her amid the rubble. I am uncertain, she admitted, and that itself is perhaps answer enough. The search beams returned, moving in a systematic grid pattern that would eventually encompass their position. Eli lifted the stretcher and proceeded deeper into the cave network, following a narrow passage that led away from the entrance. His helmet lamp illuminated rough stone surfaces marked with unusual symbols that predated human settlement. Ancient ruins, the Queen observed as they passed carved columns. Your people did not construct this place. No, the original inhabitants vanished centuries ago. We never determined what happened to them. Perhaps they too encountered a species that arrived uninvited. Feeling guilty yet? Would it matter if I were? It might be a start. The passage opened into a vast subterranean chamber filled with remnants of some forgotten civilization. Crystalline formations descended from the ceiling like frozen stars, providing a faint phosphorescent illumination that rendered artificial light unnecessary. Eli placed the stretcher beside a fallen monolith and checked his equipment. We can't remain here long, he said. The medical unit's power cells will deplete within 8 hours without recharging. Then leave me. Not happening. You cannot transport me and evade pursuit simultaneously. Basic tactical principles. I've evaded pursuit before, usually after raiding the officer's liquor cabinet, but the principle's the same. Eli consulted his mapping interface, plotting a route through the underground network that would deliver them several kilometers from the cave entrance. There's another exit to the north. If we move now, we can stay ahead of their search pattern. Above them, the sound of engines intensified. The Nirvari aircraft were landing, deploying ground teams to search the cave system. The Queen closed her eyes and Eli witnessed the conflict playing across her features. They are my people, she said finally. I should alert them to my presence. But you won't. The admission created a moment of perfect stillness between them. In the phosphorescent glow of the ancient chamber, with enemy soldiers advancing from above, Eli finally comprehended what was transpiring. She was choosing him over her own kind, just as he had chosen to save her, rather than fulfill his duty to let her die. Why back? He asked. Because you have shown me concepts I have never encountered. Mercy without weakness, strength without cruelty. She met his gaze directly. I would learn more of this before I perish. You're not going to die. Not on my watch anyway. My performance reviews are bad enough as it is. How can you be certain? Because I'm just stubborn enough to spite the universe. The sound of armored footsteps echoed from the passage behind them. Eli lifted the stretcher again, moving deeper into the ruins as Nirvari voices reverberated in their melodic language. The Queen responded in a whisper, providing directions that would guide them away from the search teams. There, she said, indicating a narrow fissure in the chamber wall. That leads to the ancient aqueduct network. They will not think to investigate there. The passage barely accommodated the stretcher, forcing Eli to angle it carefully to avoid scraping the Queen against the stone surfaces. His shoulders burned with the effort, but he persisted, following the ancient water channels that honeycombed the subterranean realm. Behind them, the voices grew fainter until they disappeared entirely. They had escaped, temporarily at least. Your tactical acumen is impressive, the Queen remarked as they emerged into another chamber. You analyze battlefield conditions like a veteran warrior. I think like someone who wants to stay alive long enough to finish my tomato garden. Is that what you desire, to survive? The question carried implications beyond its simple wording. Eli paused, considering not mere survival, but what followed, what he was fighting for beyond the next kilometer, the next day. Yes, he said finally, I want to live, and I want you to live too. Even knowing what I am, what I have done, especially knowing what you are. Your logic circuits appear dangerously flawed. So I've been told, usually right before I do something brilliant. The Queen's fever spiked as they reached the underground river that marked the midpoint of their journey. Her breathing became labored, and the portable medical unit's alerts chimed with increasing frequency. Eli placed the stretcher beside the dark water and examined the equipment, reviewing readings that made his stomach clench with apprehension. "Talk to me, Bum," he urged, adjusting medication parameters. "Stay with me. Tell me about the most ridiculous ceremonial outfit you have to wear as queen." "I am dying," she whispered, her silver eyes unfocused. "The infection spreads faster than your medicines can counteract." "No, you're going to be fine. Just needs a little human ingenuity." But the bioscanner told a different story. Her alien physiology was rejecting the human antimicrobials, and without proper surgical facilities, the internal injuries were becoming septic. "Listen to me, Eli," the Queen said, her voice gaining strength through sheer determination. "There is something you must know about the invasion, about my people. Save your strength." "No," and her hand found his fingers, burning with fever. "We are not conquerors, Eli. We are refugees." The words struck him like a physical blow. "What?" "My homeworld, there is a contagion. It spreads through the atmosphere, killing everything it touches. Plants, animals, our children. We have perhaps one planetary cycle before total extinction." Her grip tightened. Earth was not selected for conquest. It was chosen for sanctuary. Eli stared at her, processing the implications. "You were planning to relocate your people here?" "Yes, but your species resisted with such ferocity, such determination. My advisors convinced me coexistence was impossible." Her breathing grew more labored. "So we decided to clear the territory for colonization instead." My God. I recognize what I have done. The blood on my hands will never be cleansed. But we were desperate, Eli. When you are witnessing your entire civilization disintegrate, you make decisions that would have horrified your former self. The confession transformed everything. Eli gazed at this alien woman who had ordered the destruction of his friends, his neighbors, his adopted home, and saw not a monster, but a leader making impossible decisions for her people's survival. "How many?" he asked. 17 billion souls aboard the evacuation fleet, waiting in the void beyond your system's edge. 17 billion. An entire civilization suspended in the balance while their queen lay dying in an underground cavern 40 light years from home. "There has to be another solution," Eli said. "Some way for both our species to coexist." "Perhaps, but I will not survive to witness it." The Queen's eyes began to close. "Promise me something, human. Anything. When you reach your people, tell them what I have revealed. Make them understand that we are not evil, merely desperate. Perhaps there can be peace between us. You're going to tell them yourself. I didn't carry you halfway across this planet just so you could deliver dramatic deathbed confessions." But she had already lost consciousness, her breathing shallow and rapid. The medical unit's displays showed cascading system failures as the infection overwhelmed her body's defenses. Eli had perhaps 2 hours before the damage became irreversible. He examined the dark river flowing past their position, then his equipment. The portable surgical kit contained everything necessary for emergency field intervention. But operating on alien physiology in a cave with inadequate illumination approached suicidal risk. One incorrect incision, and he would kill her as surely as the infection would. But inaction guaranteed her death. "The things I do to avoid paperwork," he muttered, beginning to sterilize his instruments with methodical precision. He had trained for emergency procedures under the most adverse conditions imaginable, but never with stakes this elevated. Not just one life hanging in the balance, but 2 entire civilizations whose futures depended on what transpired in the next few hours. "Stay with me," he whispered as he prepared to make the first incision. "I'm not losing you now." The surgery required 4 hours of intense concentration, working by the light of his helmet lamp and the phosphorescent glow of the cave. Eli removed infected tissue and repaired internal damage with instruments designed for human anatomy. The Queen's alien physiology was similar enough to work with, but different enough to render every decision a calculated risk. "Whoever designed your circulatory system was clearly having a bad day," he muttered as he navigated the complex network of vessels. Would it have killed them to include a user manual? When he finally sealed the last incision, his hands trembled with exhaustion and his uniform was saturated with perspiration. The medical unit's readings showed stabilized vital signs for the first time since the fever had peaked, but he wouldn't know if the procedure had succeeded until she regained consciousness. If she regained consciousness. The Queen's eyes opened to find Eli cleaning surgical instruments beside the underground river. The fever had broken during the night, leaving her weakened but lucid. When she attempted to speak, her voice emerged as barely audible. "You performed surgery on me." "Had to. The infection was killing you." "And you made inappropriate jokes throughout, I imagine." "Only a few dozen. Medical humor helps me focus." She touched the bandages, covering her torso, feeling the precise sutures beneath. "This is sophisticated medical intervention. You preserved my life with rudimentary tools." Rudimentary but effective. Eli stored the instruments and helped her sit upright on the stretcher. "How do you feel?" "As though I have been disassembled and reconstructed, but alive." She studied his face, noting the exhaustion etched into every line. "You have not rested. Couldn't risk it. Had to monitor your vital functions." "You have strange priorities, Elijah Thorne." "So I've been told, usually right before I get court-martialed." The simple admission carried profound significance. He had spent the night watching over her, ensuring her recovery at the expense of his own rest. It represented another act of inexplicable human compassion that challenged everything she had believed about his species. "I must contact my fleet," she said, "to countermand the secondary strikes." Secondary strikes. 3 additional colony worlds. The attacks commence in 22 hours. She struggled to reach the communication device integrated into her armor. "Unless I override the directives, Marshal Zalathor will proceed with the original strategic plan." "You really should lead with these details in the future." Eli assisted her in activating the device, watching as alien glyphs scrolled across the display. The communication array would barely reach orbit from their subterranean position, but it might suffice. "This is Sovereign Zanara to Fleet Command," she said in her native tongue, the translator rendering her words in English for Eli's benefit. "Priority override. Authentication sequence Helix Omega 97. Static answered her, punctuated by brief bursts of near-vary communication. Finally, a voice responded with obvious relief. "My Sovereign, we have been searching for you. Are you in enemy captivity?" "I am secure. Cancel Operation Scythe immediately. All secondary strikes are suspended pending my return." "My Sovereign, Marshal Zalathor, has determined that compromise protocols require. I remain Sovereign of the Nirvari Dominion." Zanara's voice projected absolute authority despite her weakness. "My directives stand. Transmit confirmation." The pause extended for several heartbeats. "Confirmed. Secondary strikes canceled, my Sovereign." "What are your extraction coordinates?" Zanara looked at Eli, a question in her silver eyes. He could contact his own people, arrange a prisoner exchange at the evacuation point. Both sides would receive what they sought, and the immediate crisis would be resolved. But that would mean separation. It would mean returning to their respective sides of a conflict that suddenly seemed far more nuanced than simple conquest. "Maintain holding pattern in the outer system," she said finally. "I will transmit extraction details within 30 hours. "My Sovereign, 30 hours, Marshal." Zanara out. She deactivated the communicator and reclined against the stretcher, the effort having depleted her remaining strength. Eli regarded her with astonishment. "You bought us time," he said. "I purchased us a choice between concluding this war and perpetuating it." "What do you mean?" "Your people now possess knowledge of the contagion, of our true circumstances. When we reach the extraction point, you can share that information with your commanders." She met his gaze directly. "Perhaps there exists a solution that doesn't necessitate the deaths of millions. Like a dating app, but for interspecies cohabitation?" The unexpected quip startled a crystalline laugh from her. "Your humor is oddly effective." Eli felt something shift within his chest, a warming sensation unrelated to the cave's ambient temperature. She was entrusting him with intelligence that could save or condemn both their species, based solely on the compassion he had demonstrated during their journey. "Why?" he asked. "Why trust me with this?" because you have revealed something I considered impossible. A warrior who fights to preserve life rather than extinguish it. A soldier who extends mercy to his adversaries. She reached out and touched his hand. If more humans share your qualities, then perhaps our species can discover a path to coexistence. Not all of us, maybe not even most of us, but enough. Then we must endeavor to reach them before it's too late. No pressure or anything. Eli lifted the stretcher again, resuming their journey toward the surface. The evacuation point remained 40 kilometers distant, but for the first time since discovering Zanara amid the debris, he harbored hope that their destination might offer something beyond conclusion. It might offer beginning. The tempest that forced them to seek shelter in the abandoned mining facility struck with unanticipated ferocity, transforming the sky to obsidian and unleashing torrential precipitation across the landscape. Eli carried Zanara into the modest structure just as lightning began to fork overhead, the thunder following close enough to vibrate the metallic walls. "We'll wait out the storm here," he said, placing the stretcher in the facility's central chamber. "Though with my luck, this is probably the one building that will get struck by lightning." Emergency power systems still function, casting subdued illumination over equipment that had been abandoned when the colony initiated evacuation protocols. Zanara observed him secure the entrance against the howling wind. "You operate efficiently during crisis situations. Practice develops proficiency. Also, high-stakes panicking is exhausting." She had been growing stronger throughout the day, able to sit upright without assistance and converse without the persistent exhaustion that had characterized her recovery. The surgery had succeeded, her alien physiology adapting to his interventions with remarkable resilience. "Tell me about your world," she said as he activated a heating element. "Earth? For the war." Eli paused, searching for adequate description. "Beautiful. Diverse. 8 billion people, all different, all finding ways to coexist. Most of the time. 8 billion. She repeated the number with wonder. "Our homeworld sustained 17 billion before the contagion. I cannot envision so many souls living harmoniously." "We're not always harmonious. We fight, sometimes catastrophically, but we also love, create, construct things meant to endure for generations. We make terrible reality shows. We argue about whether certain foods should go on pizza." "Pizza? Oh boy, we have a lot to cover." Cultural exchange item number 1. He extracted emergency rations from his pack. "What about your world? What was it like?" "Harsh, beautiful in its distinctive manner, but unforgiving. Our cities were sculpted from living crystal, connected by bridges that spanned vast chasms. The sky was perpetually azure, like your oceans at sunset." Her voice carried a note of profound loss. "I will never behold it again." "Maybe you will. Maybe we can develop a cure for the contagion." "Human optimism," she said, but without the derision she might have employed days earlier. "It is refreshing. We're annoyingly hopeful. It's our superpower." The storm intensified, forcing them closer together as they shared the meager warmth of the heating element. In the subdued light, Zanara's azure skin seemed to radiate an inner luminescence, and Eli found himself studying the sharp angles of her face, the way her obsidian hair cascaded across her shoulders. "You are observing me," she noted. "Sorry, it's just, you're beautiful. I know that probably sounds inappropriate given everything, but it does not sound inappropriate." Her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. "You are not what I anticipated either, Elijah Thorne." The use of his full name sent an involuntary shiver through him that had nothing to do with the ambient temperature. When she spoke it, the simple syllables became intimate, personal. "What did you expect?" "A barbarian, a savage who would exploit my vulnerability for his own advantage." She shifted on the stretcher, wincing slightly. "Instead, I discover a healer who risks everything to preserve life. I'm still a soldier. Yes, but a soldier who fights for something greater than conquest." Her silver eyes met his. "Do you know what my people would say about the compassion you have demonstrated? That it's weakness. That it represents the supreme strength, to choose mercy when hatred would be simpler, to protect when destruction would be more expedient." She extended her hand, her fingers finding his. "It is a strength my people have forgotten. We forget it sometimes too, That's why we have to keep reminding each other. Her touch transmitted electric sensation, and Eli realized that somewhere during their journey, his feelings had transformed from duty to something far more dangerous. She was the enemy, the architect of his world's devastation, but she was also a woman who had entrusted him with her life and her people's future. Zanara, I know this is impossible. You are human. I am Nirvari. Our species are engaged in hostilities. That's not what makes it impossible. Then what does? The fact that when this concludes, you'll return to your fleet and I'll return to mine. Different worlds, different responsibilities. Also the fact that interspecies dating would make holiday dinners extremely awkward. She remained silent for a prolonged moment, her thumb tracing patterns across the back of his hand. Perhaps, she said finally, or perhaps we can alter the conclusion. How? By selecting what we desire rather than what is expected of us. You make revolution sound so simple. Nothing worthwhile is ever simple, Elijah. The storm raged outside, but inside the modest facility, something unprecedented was taking shape between them. Not merely attraction, though that certainly existed, but understanding. Recognition of something in each other that transcended species and conflict. I should warn you, Eli said, I'm not adept at choosing the uncomplicated path. Neither am I, she smiled, and it transformed her entire countenance. Perhaps that explains why we find ourselves here together. That and the invasion. Yes, that too. When she drew him toward her, when their lips met in a kiss that tasted of possibility and defiance, Eli understood that the war between their peoples had just become personal in ways that would transform everything. They encountered the survivors at dawn, 3 humans clustered around a failing fire in the remnants of what had once been a transport station. Eli recognized them immediately. Petra Koval, a cargo pilot, and Miro Kalani, a settlement engineer, both of whom he had treated for minor injuries in the colony's medical center. The third was a young man he didn't know, probably from one of the agricultural cooperatives. Doc? Petra's voice cracked with disbelief as Eli emerged from the morning mist, pulling the stretcher behind him. Christ, we thought you were dead. Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated, though my shoulders may never forgive me. Eli set the stretcher down carefully, noting how the 3 survivors' eyes fixed on Zanara with a mixture of recognition and visceral hatred. Found some medical supplies at the mining facility. Thought you might need them. That's her, the young man said, his voice trembling. That's the alien who murdered my family. Easy, Eli said, positioning himself between them and the stretcher. She's wounded. She's not a threat. Not a threat? Miro stood, his hands clenched into fists. She commanded the forces that incinerated our homes, slaughtered our children. She's a monster. She's a refugee, Eli replied calmly. Her people are dying. The invasion wasn't conquest, it was desperation. Desperation? Petra gestured around them. Look at what they did to us, Doc. Look what they did. I see it, he said quietly. I see all of it, but I also see what happens when we allow fear to dictate our choices. Fear? The young man laughed bitterly. This isn't fear, Doc. This is justice. He lunged toward the stretcher, a salvaged metal component in his hand. Eli intercepted him effortlessly, his combat training engaging as he disarmed and restrained the younger man without inflicting serious injury. Stand down, he ordered, his voice projecting the authority of his military rank. All of you. You're protecting her, Miro said, his voice saturated with disgust. You're actually defending the creature that annihilated our world. I'm protecting someone who cannot protect herself. That's what we do. That's what distinguishes us from them. Distinguishes? Petra gestured at the devastation surrounding them. How are we superior? We're dead, Doc. Our families are dead. Our world is smoldering ruin. And she's dying too, Eli said, indicating Zanara on the stretcher. Her people are dying. Everyone's dying, and we're all too preoccupied with hating each other to discover a solution. There is no solution, the young man said, still struggling against Eli's restraint. There's only them or us. No, Eli released him and stepped back. There's us, all of us, human, Nirvari, whatever other species are observing this conflict. We're all just people trying to survive. People? Miro's voice escalated. Doc, they're aliens. They're not people. She has a name, Eli said quietly. Zanara. She has a home she'll never see again. People she's trying to save. She makes observations when she's in pain and asks questions about concepts she doesn't understand. She's curious about our world, our culture, our capacity for compassion. He looked at each of them in turn. If that doesn't qualify her as a person, then what does? The silence extended between them, broken only by the distant sound of aircraft engines. More search parties, probably both human and Nirvari, combing the wasteland for survivors. They're coming, Petra said, checking her scanner. Human vessels. The evacuation fleet. Then we need to move, Eli said, lifting the stretcher again. The extraction point is still 20 kilometers away. We're not accompanying you, Miro said. Not while you're protecting her. Maybe, but at least we'll expire with our humanity intact. The words struck Eli like a physical impact. He regarded these people he had known, had treated, had considered friends, and saw strangers. The war had transformed them, stripped away the compassion that had once defined their small community. Humanity isn't something you lose, he said finally. It's something you choose every day, every moment. You choose whether to be human or just another animal fighting for survival. Very inspiring, Doc, Petra said coldly. Tell that to my dead children. I would if I could, Eli replied quietly. I'd tell them their mother was brave and strong, even in her grief, that she survived when others didn't, that she had every reason to hate, but I hope someday she'll find a reason not to. Petra's hard expression faltered for just a moment. He began walking toward the extraction point, pulling Zanara behind him. In the distance, he heard the survivors arguing among themselves, their voices fading as distance grew between them. They despise me, Zanara said quietly. They hate what you represent, the destruction of their world, their way of life. As they should, I am responsible for their suffering. Yes, but you're also the key to ending it. Your optimism borders on clinical delusion. It's my other superpower. Unreasonable optimism in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Zanara remained silent for several minutes, then, your companions called you Doc. You were their healer, their protector. Now they perceive you as a traitor. Maybe I am. No, you embody what your species can become, what they will need to become if our peoples are to achieve peace. No pressure there. I have complete confidence in your stubbornness. It's gotten me this far. Eli didn't elaborate further, but he felt the weight of her words settle into his consciousness, like a promise he wasn't certain he could fulfill. The evacuation point sprawled across a natural plateau, surrounded by hastily erected defensive positions and filled with the organized chaos of a military withdrawal. Human vessels descended from orbit in regular intervals, loading refugees and equipment before launching back toward the fleet waiting in high orbit. Eli paused at the perimeter, studying the scene below. Commander Blackwell coordinated the operation from a command post at the center of the complex, his staff orchestrating the evacuation with practiced efficiency. Nearby, a field hospital treated wounded civilians and military personnel alike. Last opportunity to reconsider. Starter, he said to Zanara. About what? About this, about us. Once we descend, everything changes. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the stubble that had accumulated during their journey. Everything has already changed, Eli. The moment you chose to save me rather than allow me to die. Your people won't understand. Neither will yours, but understanding is not prerequisite for survival. That should be on a t-shirt. Movement caught his attention. Nirvari aircraft approaching from the south, their sleek forms cutting through the afternoon atmosphere. Marshal Zalathor had arrived to retrieve his sovereign, just as Commander Blackwell had come to extract his people. They're here, Eli said. Yes, the moment of truth. I hate moments of truth. They're always so truthy. Eli inhaled deeply and began walking down the slope, pulling the stretcher behind him. As they approached, he observed the tension permeating the human encampment. Soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons, their eyes fixed on Zanara. He also witnessed Commander Blackwell, a stern man with silver-streaked hair, stride forward to intercept them. Thorn, what in God's name is that? Blackwell demanded, indicating Zanara. This is Zanara, Eli replied. She's the sovereign of the Nirvari fleet. And before you ask, no, this is not how I plan to spend my retirement. A murmur rippled through the assembled humans. Some cursed, others simply stared in disbelief. She's our prisoner, Blackwell declared emphatically. No, sir, Eli responded. She's my patient, and we have significant matters to discuss. At that moment, the Nirvari vessels landed, their entry ramps descending to reveal armored figures. Marshal Zalathor stepped forward, his silver eyes burning with fierce intensity. He spoke in his native language, and Zanara replied, her voice weak but resolute. He demands my immediate return, she explained to Eli. He does not trust you. Shocking. Tell him we need to confer. Both sides. Zanara relayed the message, and after a tense hesitation, Zalathor nodded. A meeting was arranged in a neutral zone, a large shelter established between the human and Nirvari positions. Eli helped Zanara onto a medical bed inside, then faced Blackwell and Zalathor, who stood with their respective officers. Very well, Blackwell began. What is this about, Thorn? Why are you safeguarding this alien? She revealed the truth, Eli said. This invasion wasn't about conquest. It concerns survival. Their planet is dying from a contagion, and they required a new habitat. Earth was their selection. Zalathor spoke, and Zanara translated. He states that you will not comprehend, that you perceive us as monsters. We witnessed you attacking our settlements, slaughtering our people, Blackwell replied, his voice hardened by recent experience. What alternative interpretation existed? Desperation compels individuals to commit terrible acts, Zanara said. We were not attempting to be cruel. We were attempting to survive. By killing us? By securing a future for our children. Would you do less for yours? Silence descended momentarily, then Eli spoke again. She also informed me there are 17 billion of them in orbital position. 17 billion refugees. They aren't departing. We must discover a method of coexistence. Blackwell regarded Zalathor, who maintained an impassive expression. And how do you propose we accomplish that? We communicate, Eli said. We share resources. We develop a cure for their contagion. We find a means for both our species to inhabit this planet. Naive, Zalathor muttered, but Zanara silenced him with a look. He claims that you are weak, that your compassion will precipitate your downfall, she explained. But I told him that strength manifests not merely in combat, but in understanding. And I told him humans are too stubborn to exterminate easily, so he might as well try diplomacy. The conference continued for hours. They discussed the contagion, the Nirvari technology, and human capabilities. Tempers flared repeatedly, but Eli persisted in advocating compromise. Zanara spoke eloquently, explaining her people's predicament and her hope for peace. Gradually, the initial hostility began to diminish, replaced by cautious interest. So you're stating they cannot return to their homeworld? Blackwell asked, massaging his temples. Not without a cure, Zanara confirmed, and we do not possess one. We do, Eli said suddenly. We have research teams on Earth developing antiviral solutions. We can transmit the contagion data to them. Zalathor regarded him with evident surprise. You would assist us? If it means preserving lives, yes, Eli replied. Human and Nirvari lives alike. And if we provided you with detailed information about our atmospheric remediation technology, Zanara suggested. Your world suffers from climate degradation. We have solved similar problems on larger scales. Blackwell's eyebrows rose. That would be significant. As would a cure for our people, Zalathor admitted grudgingly. As the meeting concluded, Zanara summoned Eli closer. Thank you, she said. You advocated for my people, even when they would not advocate for themselves. I'm just trying to avoid having to carry you across any more deserts. Is that truly your motivation? No, but it's easier than admitting I've gotten rather attached to an alien queen who tried to destroy my planet. Sovereign, not queen. Sorry, your sovereignness. The subsequent days were consumed by intensive negotiations. Human scientists transmitted data to the Nirvari fleet, and the aliens shared their technology in return. A joint research initiative was established, working continuously to develop a cure. Eli found himself functioning as mediator, bridging the gap between the two cultures. He spent the majority of his time with Zanara, observing as she interacted with her people and his. He witnessed the burden of responsibility she carried, the pressure of leading a civilization facing extinction. He also recognized her kindness, her intelligence, and her determination to achieve peace. His feelings for her deepened with each passing day. One evening, as they sat outside the command shelter watching twin moons ascend, Zanara spoke softly. "My people are beginning to comprehend. They observe your willingness to assist. They are evolving." "As are we," Eli said. "We're learning that not all adversaries are monsters. Some are just like us, striving to survive. Some are even surprisingly attractive, despite having blue skin and intimidating cranial ridges. And some are tolerable, despite their fragile pink exteriors and bizarre sense of humor." She reached for his hand, her silver eyes filled with warmth. "What will happen when this concludes, Eli?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know I don't want to say farewell. Perhaps you could show me these tomatoes you speak of with such reverence." "I'd like that, though they'll probably need replanting, considering your people vaporized the last batch." Days transformed into weeks, and gradually a cure was developed. The information shared by humans combined with the advanced Nirvari technology led to a breakthrough. Tests demonstrated efficacy, and hope spread through both encampments. When the moment arrived to announce the cure, both Blackwell and Zalathor stood together, addressing their respective peoples. Zanara stood beside Eli, her hand clasped firmly in his. "We have discovered a solution," Blackwell declared. "A method for them to return home. A way for peace." Cheers erupted from the assembled crowd, human and Nirvari alike. There were tears, embraces, and a palpable sense of relief that washed over everyone. The war had concluded, replaced by a fragile but growing harmony. As the Nirvari fleet prepared for departure, Zanara turned to Eli. "My people wish you to accompany us," she said, "to witness our homeworld, to participate in our future." Eli glanced at Blackwell, who nodded. "Go," he said. "You've earned it." "I've earned a very long nap, but this works too." Eli regarded Zanara, her silver eyes shimmering with anticipation. "I'll go," he said, "but only if you promise to return, to experience my home, to participate in my future." She smiled, a radiant, luminous smile. "I promise. And to help me rebuild my garden. You owe me at least 17 tomato plants. A small price for peace between worlds." As he boarded the Nirvari vessel, Eli understood his existence had transformed irrevocably. He was no longer simply a medic or a soldier, but a bridge between two worlds. And he had discovered love in the most unexpected place, with a sovereign from another star. 6 months later, as they stood together on the crystal balcony of the newly established Embassy of Earth on Nirvar Prime, watching the atmospheric cleansers work their magic on the once poisoned skies, Zanara leaned against his shoulder. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you found me in the rubble?" she asked. "Not even close," Eli admitted, slipping his arm around her waist. "I was mostly concerned with not getting shot by either side. And now you are the most celebrated diplomat in 2 solar systems. And you're the most controversial sovereign in Nirvari history. We make quite the pair." "Indeed," she said, turning to face him. "Though I must confess, I still do not understand the appeal of these tomatoes you insisted on cultivating in the embassy gardens." Eli laughed. "You will when they're ripe. Some things are worth carrying across a desert." "Like wounded enemy queens?" "Especially those." He kissed her lightly. "Though next time, I'm definitely requisitioning a vehicle."